become. It's not about numbers. This country of over 60 million people is run by 160,000 people. You know that, of course, right? Conservative members are only 160,000. And the population is what, 66 million or something?
67.
So don't get fixated on numbers. Understand how to use numbers and what kind of people, what kind of members they should be. Then I think we'll end up in a very good place. So in terms of where we are, do I really need to tell you? It sounds like you're totally up to speed. The country is slowly grinding to a halt in every single aspect you can think of. And I think maybe we need to just take a step back. When November 2017 happened, a lot of Zimbabweans, I think, quite mistakenly, became very hopeful, not so much that they thought too much about what was going on. What got them fixated, what they got fixated on was Mugabe's ouster. They just got euphoric that Mugabe was gone. They didn't then think through.
The morning after, the night before.
Yeah, who was coming, where were they coming from, what they didn't engage in all of that. If you go back and look at the statements. We didn't issue a lot of statements. I think we only issued 2 statements at that time. Firstly, APA as a party did not participate in the march. But we said, as Zimbabweans, those of APA who want to participate are free to do so. Go back and look at the inauguration. I think it's only APA that was not present. I did not go there. I was in Harare. I didn't go there. All of the other people who are protesting today were at that inauguration.
Were you invited?
I think you invited yourself, literally. You know, the way we operate as Zimbabweans, we like association with power. We find a way of getting close to power. Yeah? So that's what happened. And today, people are making all sorts of noises, but go back to history and just check, fact check, as they say, and you'll be surprised at what you find. Okay? So the country, I come from a very private sector orientation. You know that in the private sector, when you apply for a job, I say even in a functional public sector, it's the same process. We look at your CV, we interview you, then we look at your track record. Yeah? You can be the most articulate person about selling yourself, but if your track record does not speak to the same thing, you will not get the job. Ultimately, you will offer the job to the person who has demonstrated previously that they can do this by performing. In your area, it's even more rigorous, right? Yeah. So we seem to be, and I will continue to use a we approach because I think there is a problem with us as Zimbabweans. And I think we need to take responsibility as Zimbabweans and stop pointing fingers because I think we missed the point. Okay? We are known as a nation which is highly educated, very high levels of literacy. And often I observe that our parents made amazing investments in us, but our parents are not getting a return for their investment. And what I mean by that, those of us, they spend so much sending to school, having hopefully learned something and become aware of the ways of the world, we've not gone back to them to help them understand the ways of the world. Because if we had, our parents would be making decisions which reflect that return on investment. We are quite happy at a very individual level to make decisions using the knowledge that they invested in, but we don't go back to give back to them and help them understand the world so that they make decisions that make sense. So at the high level, I want to leave it at that. But maybe let me also add something else which puzzles me. I've told you, and you're right, I think it was you who pointed out, I was at WITS participating at an event there when I made this observation. That as far as I'm concerned, Zimbabweans, as of today, are not fighting to change the system. Zimbabweans want to be included in the system. It's a typical animal farm scenario. And you know, when we went around campaigning, it was fascinating for me, the lack of logical association of what people are asking for, what they say they don't like, and their lack of understanding the relationship. So Nkosana goes out campaigning. Then they want you to buy them trinkets. They want you to buy them alcohol. And you say to them, so, you want me to buy your vote? They've got all sorts of idioms, you know. In Masringo, they say, Tudakumbo Sutai. I mean, you know, and they'll go to great lengths to explain and justify. And then you say to them, so, tell me something. If I go around this country and they've got the capacity to buy Zimbabweans all these trinkets and buy them alcohol and so on and so on, do you ever ask yourself where I might be getting the money?
Okay.
Do you really ask yourself where I might be getting the money? Don't you think that might be an indication that I've actually pre-sold your country? That when I get in, I'll have to pay back.
I don't think the people really think through into it.
But that's my point. My point is that the people sitting in this room, you represent people ought to be able to understand that and explain to all your friends and relatives. But we don't do it. Yeah? We don't make these associations. Everybody who campaigns using lots of money is potentially a criminal. And potentially they've sold your country. They will have to pay back as soon as... So when they get elected, you are not their boss. Their boss is the one who has funded them.
But can I just say, on that aspect, people think because we have a culture of Waguru, my boss, my chef, and stuff like that, is we think that if you can buy me alcohol, which means you are minted.
I want you to go, but that's why I'm saying you should go explain. That's why
in their minds they will never challenge themselves to think that where is the money coming from.
But why don't you explain to them? Remember that
after this, yes, I will be able to.
my approach is very simple, guys.
Yes.
I don't believe that a meaningful campaign is through a rally.
No.
Because this conversation cannot happen.
No.
When you go to people you know, your circle of influence, friends and family, you can have a proper conversation where you can explain these things.
Okay.
Yeah?
I have one challenge.
Yeah, please go ahead.
And it's a challenge which somebody put to me, because I put a similar sort of argument to what you're putting. And the challenge was this, because at the end of the day, it's mainly the rural areas we need to start off with, because that is where the biggest problem is of this patronage system which you are alluding to, which ZANU-PF has invested heavily in a patronage system, where if I don't toe the same line as Sabuk, I'm not going to get my seed, I'm not going to get my fertilizer, my children are not going to eat, I'm not going to go to school. So even if I come and I talk, they have to deal with the practicalities of their existence. So pop quiz, how do you now break that? Because Sabuk is directly, for the most part, beholden to the ZANU-PF district officer or whoever is, let's say ZANU-PF, because they are the biggest party in the country, or the most prevalent party in the country. They are beholden to that person for their own existence, for the chief, for his double cab, which he's more interested in. I need to have that double cab because it gives me that position. And yet, so me from the city or from UK coming in and saying, you need to do this, you need to do this, they may understand my logic, but the practicalities of their day-to-day, that is where I think part of the challenge is in the conversation. And I guess one of the things I've been struggling to find is how does one break the cycle? Because you have to find a way to break the cycle.
It's not complicated. So, you know the expression, wearing your heart on your sleeve.
Yes.
That's very different from being strategic. Look at all of the Eastern countries, all of them. They've worked their way from a history that is not very different from ours. You never hear them shouting about what they believe. They don't do what Mugabe did. They pretend to be stupid. They come into a meeting and pretend not to understand your language when they are fully competent. Yeah? Isusu, we believe in shouting, and we think that that delivers results. So I am not saying, for instance, that if ZANU comes to give you fertilizer, you shouldn't take it. Ian Smith did not believe independence was going to come to Zimbabwe for 1,000 years. Remember? Or you may not remember, depending on how old you are. I never said to people that they should openly rebel. I say to them, when they come and giving you fertilizer and whatever, take it. The only thing that counts is what you do when you go to vote. If they want you to buy a membership card, buy it. We come from a history where we got our independence through guerrilla warfare. This is guerrilla warfare that's required here. Exactly the same, no different. We operate in a vicious system. So if you're going to believe in putting your head above the parapet, they'll chop it. Who wants that? I don't want matters. I want people who are strategic to navigate their way towards changing the system in a smart way.